All right, hello everyone, and welcome to a discussion of Discovery by JAJ Minton. Uh, I have all the J's and the A here today with me, and I'm so excited for
You know,
that.
P is here as well.
Oh,
He's
P
in the
is
room.
here.
Is
Oh
Mr.
no.
Pooh in the house?
Mr.
I
Pooh
wish
the
he
pug
wasn't.
is asleep
He's right
right
over there
here
on his bed.
on his
Oh,
bed.
okay. Well,
Oh
don't
good.
disturb him. Don't disturb
I'm
the
gonna disturb him later.
His Imperial
Nope.
Majesty on my account. Um, But I did want to show off my Mr.
Oh
Poop
yeah.
Mr.
print
Pooh. Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
copy, which I
Only a
love.
few got those. Not everyone got that.
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
I,
that is pretty rare.
I think this particular copy is going to be worth a ton of money because
Oh,
of
sure.
that.
Well, sure.
It's gonna be dollars, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the ones of
And
dollars.
it's way up in the tens of dollars someday.
Well, we might hit triple digits even with the
Yeah.
decimal
Don't
involved.
don't get
Oh, with a decimal.
Dare,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 Okay,
Don't get
sure.
carried away. Don't get carried away.
Dare to dream. Dare to dream.
Now, you guys have no idea how awesome this book is. I love this
We
book.
really don't.
No
This
idea.
is this is a going to be in my top. I don't do top 10, so sorry everyone, but I do my favorite reads of the year. This is definitely making that video. Uh,
Wow.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love this
Thank
book.
That
you.
is amazing.
Yeah,
That's
no,
amazing.
I'm not going to be alone on that. This is a big hit, and you just wait. I will be able to say at least when Hollywood comes knocking on your door that I got a blurb in here, so that's cool, right?
That was very
Um,
cool for us
That was
as well to
amazing for
receive
us.
yeah.
Yeah.
it. So
We
the
actually
feeling
did
is mutual.
an actual happy dance in the kitchen when we
Yeah.
got your blurb.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would argue that having the Philip blurb at the beginning felt like Hollywood knocking on our door
Yeah,
to us.
kind of
That
did. You have no idea. We were so nervous.
Mhm.
And I don't know why. I understand. My TBR is out of control. I have to constantly push things down and move things around and stuff. And it's like we felt you had started, and then it was a good while, and I thought you read
For like a
faster.
month and a half. We're
And it's
like,
like
oh
every day
no.
for a month and a half, I'd contact Jacob. I think he hated it. I think he really hated it. And he's the kindest man in the world, and he
He
just
doesn't
will
want to
not
say
say
anything. And
anything.
then we all just like, you know what? Just just breathe. It'll
Just
be
get on with
okay.
our
It'll
lives.
be
Just
okay.
get on with our lives.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I
Just
remember when you DM'd me, John, and you send me this message saying, look, it's okay if you can't read it. I know,
Yeah.
and I know, I think I had said something on my channel about picking it up or something, and
Yeah.
you said something like very politely, it's okay if you don't have time, and da 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 da. And I said, no,
Eh,
I'm starting. I'm really looking forward to it.
shoot it. That's okay. I'm just busy.
I felt like I'm telling you, I felt like I was walking up to the front of the classroom. I'm putting my thesis on the desk.
That's not how you put a thesis. You don't put a thesis on it.
I mean, in my day, you did.
Yeah. Like you never wrote a thesis in your life.
Maybe I wrote some final essays. Okay. Maybe I didn't get far enough to write a thesis. You don't have to call me out.
Yeah.
it's too late. It already happened.
Well, you might not have written a thesis, but you guys wrote a magnificent book, and just couldn't be more happy for you guys. It's beautiful. And we all love that you did it together, and are amazed actually, because I can't imagine what it's like to work together, even as obviously close as you three are. And that's beautiful too. But working with somebody writing a book, I mean, how do you wrestle with no, or do you just can you? Is it easier in a way? Can you say to the other person, look, I think this part sucks. I don't like this character. Or you have these conversations, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
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 That happens more often than you would think, actually. That
Yeah.
we call each other and go, no, that's maybe the worst idea I've ever heard. And
So maybe
I
being
think
close is an advantage in that case.
I think it is, especially
Mhm.
for the two of you, mom and dad.
Yeah.
You've been working together for so long that the barrier of who's going to get hurt is just gone.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the barrier's gone because we know we're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Like we were we were plotting book two, and it was just last
Yeah.
week.
Just
You
like
know, last week Amy had to walk to the back porch and just go.
it's like I can't deal with you anymore. Like you just can't be. You just I said, well, you write it, and I went to the back porch.
Yeah.
And John's like sitting down. She's like, we've been here before. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't remember the the hard parts of
Yeah.
discovery. But as soon as we started book 2, it all came back. I was like, yeah, we fought quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it makes for a better process.
It
because,
does.
like,
If
can
the
you imagine having somebody there during the Dan trilogy who was just like, you hand over your pages at the end of the night and they're like, no, I don't buy it.
yeah.
I mean, can you imagine?
Emotionally, he wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
We have to do this.
Yeah.
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 It-
But
Your
I think
blocking
it,
is wrong.
the
You know?
blocking stutters. You
Yeah.
have her here, and then she's picking up a phone. How did she get
No,
there?
because it's cut and paste,
Yeah,
baby.
it's
That's just
this magic system doesn't work. Well, we made that magic system 6 months ago, so that's a problem.
yeah. And
So wait, now what you're telling me is that it's a miracle that you wrote anything at all.
oh
That
my
100%
God, yes.
true. Yes,
Yeah.
But it makes for a better book. We
it does.
no one lets anyone slide on anything.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes from the three of us all independently want the book to be the best it can be. We all
Yes.
believe in the story so much that it's like, I can't let you go through with what I think is a bad idea because it'll hurt me that this story is not what I think it could be in my mind.
Exactly. And then we found, as we moved through the book, we found, okay, this is going to sound horrible, but how hard will someone fight? Because that means we should maybe listen. They might have something. Oh,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
digging in really hard. We
Yeah.
should probably really look at this idea
You
because
have
they're
to be able to tell like the harebrained ideas. And sometimes I have to admit, I would have ideas just to make you too angry. And then
but if you fought hard, we'd go, I don't know, we should maybe give her
Well,
some
it's
room.
well, and those ones that I'm just like, I'm just going to wind them up a little bit and have some fun. Like, you know, they're just like, this is horrible. And I'm just like, yeah, just trying to keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I would love for you to say as much or as little as you want, but I think it would be fun to have you talk about each other's contributions to the book. I'd like you to characterize.
Oh.
So first, let's go with John and Amy. Tell me, what were Jacob's contributions to this book? How would you characterize his essence in this book? What is Jacob here, or where is Jacob?
Mediation during arguments.
When we get to the spoiler, you said you wanted to keep it spoiler free at the beginning.
For
But
now.
when we get to spoiler parts, I'll tell you a chapter
You
Jacob
can name
wrote.
characters.
Yeah.
I'll just say like there's a character named Sorrow that has one of his chapters close to the end, and it's a character that is you know, he has an expanded view of things. I'll just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Gotcha.
And then John came up with the monologue part, and Jacob, like, I just gave him an assignment, you know,
Yeah.
like I just like go upstairs and write what goes in between the monologue, right? And I was so proud when he came downstairs after 2 hours with basically what you read. Like it's changed very little. And so Jacob's sense of
You know, he was in the flow. Yeah.
so Jacob's sense of theatricality and his vivid imagination and
poetry.
his poetry to me is just it's just a proud point.
He's extremely meticulous in his prose, and
Yeah.
he builds it like stanzas. It's
Yeah.
he can't move fast, but he moves in a meticulous poetic nature. And the book has any type of cinematic stylings is strictly because of his visual style.
Yeah.
And there were moments where we couldn't see a scene, and we were not all on the same page visualizing a scene, and he would actually storyboard. This is where I would put the camera. This is where the characters are. He would storyboard the whole scene, how the lighting would go.
Yeah.
And it's those touches that make certain scenes, now we go back and look at them and it's like, that's so cinematic because of the visual style he brings to it. Like that. And the initial idea was his. Like none of this would exist without him having the initial idea.
We just totally stole it.
Yeah.
Well, I think he was happy. Good.
I'm very happy.
Brilliant. I love that. Now we're gonna trade seats here, and I think it would be lovely to have you, Jacob, and you, John, talk about what's Amy's part in this. What is her contribution to this fantastic book? Where do we find Amy in this?
Oh,
you
man.
go, son.
Our mom.
Mom. Yeah. It'd be weird if I called her Amy. But I've noticed that a lot of the things that people compliment over and over and over about the book, about the research and the care and the representation of all the multiculturalism, all
Uh-huh.
of that is hours and hours and hours of work from her. Just intense and talented researching. There were many times that uh, her and I would be trying to write a chapter together, and she would find things that I was like, I have no idea how you found that. If you gave me 10 days, I would have never found this little tiny piece of research that you found that changes an entire character and how they're feeling in this moment. That a lot of that goes into the hopper to create all these specific voices for these characters that make everybody feel so real in a
Mm.
story that humanity at its core is very important. So the voice plays such a big role in that. I mean, the book would not be, I think it would be incomprehensible if she was not
Yes.
involved.
Yeah. It would be it wouldn't exist. And if
That's
it did,
not
be a
true
mess.
because I just said you wrote a beautiful chapter with your dad. So that's
And
not.
yet,
I had very little to do with that chapter.
This is hard for me. 'Cause Amy is my favorite writer in the world.
Not
And
Dr. Chase.
well, you're a
No,
close
I
second,
will.
Dr. J.
I will gladly be second there.
She's my favorite. We built a theater company together, and then when we moved on, she got accepted into just a prestigious MFA program. Just I just thought I just think I'll do this, and she gets in. It's that she's that level of that's insane. And then when you read, she's her ethereal voice, her dialogue, her
Mm.
characters. She brings this literary sensibility to this genre that I love that gives it a depth. You have to have characters with background and some trauma that they have to overcome in their art. But each and every one is tied to not only themselves, but their genetic background and their cultural background and where it came from and where it's going with the people around them. And it's so much deeper and it's so much richer. And at the same time, with all this research and this literary sensibility, there's this unbelievable sense of irreverence
Mm.
that that's laugh out loud funny. And you have to have that, or it all just becomes so top heavy it collapses. And without her and those things that she can do, our thorough voice with the irreverence, with the deep, grounded core of emotionality with each of these characters of where they come from,
Mm.
it comes together and it just makes something that it's even hard to describe. It's people ask me what kind of book is it? And it's like it's hard to describe, and it's because of the bits and pieces that she brings
Yeah.
and puts together in a certain way.
Yeah, it
I
has a
think it would
certain.
have, yeah, I think we would have had some, oh, that's a cool idea. We can do this. This is cool. It would not, but that's all I felt. Sometimes we brought some cool stuff. She brought the good stuff.
She brought the magic. She brought the spark. There's
Yes.
a lot of stories are really well told, but it's a rare thing when you have a story that just sparks, like that. And
Or
that's
there's a level of heart to it that I
yeah,
don't think, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're talking about, I found in the story. So now I know where it's coming from. So yeah. Neat. All right. Well, now I want to hear what you, Amy, and what you, Jacob, think your father or John brought to
We
this
we could this
story.
we could skip this one.
In my mind, I mean, this is just I'm imagining this, but in my mind, I'm picturing John somewhere in your house, maybe with Mr. Pooh as the audience, monologuing certain parts, like especially Manny. I always think of Manny when I think of you doing this, John. I don't know why, but just monologuing parts and just stuff coming right off the tongue. Am I anywhere near accurate in this
You're
perspective?
Your
you're
your
100%.
imagination is working correctly. That is exactly how that happened.
Yep.
I have always felt like my dad is one of the best storytellers I've ever known or read or encountered. And I think he has just such a skill with orating the best story. And I guess an example of that would be there have been so many occasions that he's told me, you got to read this book, you got to watch this show. And he'll explain the show or the book to me, and I'll go, oh, that sounds awesome. And I'll start reading or watching whatever he said and go, oh, this sucks. What he said was way cooler. He really made that sing, man.
So
That was
it's a
awesome.
lack of taste, is what.
Yeah.
It's a gift, is what it
It
is.
is
It's
a
a
gift.
gift.
And not only that, but his ability to hold an entire universe of rules and systems in his head that, I mean, if we didn't have my mom, the book would be incomprehensible. If we didn't have my dad, it would have keep a counter of plot holes that the book would have. It would be extreme. Just the amount of
Yeah.
times that we've been in the writer's room going, I have no idea how this works, or, oh, we've created a problem in our own system of this character being too far away and we need them to be here to do this thing. And he goes, oh, no, no, just do this. I've had this in mind for like 8 months. Okay. And it's a talent I've never seen anybody have before.
Yeah. Yeah. John, if you tear up like that, I'm gonna have to turn my screen off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is not easy, man. That's tough to, that
Yeah.
is, I mean, one, beautiful, and two, tough to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andy,
But
what do
he's,
you think
yeah,
John brought to this whole thing?
he's Jacob's very accurate that he's one of the best storytellers there is, and he also understands how story works, and he's always been
Wow.
my first reader because he'll be able to tell me, like, no, this isn't what you want to do here, this is what you want to do here. Every time we're watching a show together, I don't watch anything with him anymore because
That's
he'll
true.
just announce in the first 2 minutes, it's like, this is how this is going to end. And I'm like,
The most
what?
infuriating thing. Like, oh, I'm
Yes.
watching
Am
this
I
show. I'm so excited for how this finale is
I'm
going to
not
go.
a good
You know how
man.
this is
Like,
going to
this
end?
sounds
I know how this
horrible.
ends.
What you got to do, John, is write it down, and then you can
I
show
should
it
keep
afterwards.
cards. Yeah, I
And
should
then
keep
you're just
cards.
like, not only that, like he can, he's a performer. So when he watches television and it's a really good scene and there's really good acting going on, you can see him mouthing along with the parts and doing this kind of in his seat because
I
he's
love it.
cataloging everything. He's cataloging actions and he's cataloging voice
Yeah.
and he doesn't have to write anything down. It all goes up here. And so when he's ready to say, I'm, I know how to fill this plot hole, because like he just goes through his little Rolodex and then boom, he'll perform the scene as it needs to be done. And
Wow.
then you can just write it down. And it's just like, you say I'm the best writer. I just copy you down. That's all I do.
She did record me a couple times.
Yeah.
Several
I
times.
will, as you said, the Manny beginning, that's the straight, they just wound me up and
Wait,
recorded
does
me
this
up.
recording this exists still?
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yes. The Manny DiMartini recording exists. There is a
When do we get to
recording.
hear it or see it? Is it a video or just
I
audio?
don't know. It's
Just
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 audio.
audio.
Okay.
I'm thinking of making it a very high patron level
Yes.
to fund our next book.
There's
You're gonna
Release
get
the
a whole
Manny
bunch of new
tapes.
patrons then.
Yeah, no, release the Manny tapes
We
is
got to
a
do like a
hashtag on our Discord.
Kickstarter,
Yeah.
Kickstarter goal.
Yeah, right. Oh, release the Manny tapes. The other thing that he did was at the very end when Howard Winfield has a fit and he needs to bring everybody under control, that basically does the push into book 2. It
Okay.
just basically like he cements himself as everything everybody said he was, and then like he drops the bomb and he basically puts everybody's nose to the grindstone and pushes through with the idea that's going to go into book 2. And that was such a big moment for me. And Jacob, I think, was moving at the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't available, and I was like, that's a really big thing for me to shoulder, like, because like this is like we have to live with this moment. And
you were really tired.
I was
You were at a
tired.
point where you were saying, I'm tired.
I don't
Like,
have anything else.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
just and
I just don't have it.
and when we were pushing that moment and we like have to, and it has to be big, it has to be a switch, it has to be everything, like it has to push them hard enough for all these characters to do something drastic. And I said, I don't have it. I don't have it. I don't, I was just panicked. And John's like, watch this. And then he just, boom, just says it all. Howard's monologue from A to Z, all
Wow.
of the beats, everything that needed to be there. And I was just like, can you do that again? I recorded it and I got it all down. And it was, thank you. I mean, it's cheating. It's just
It
it's
is.
absolutely cheating.
He has such an understanding of flow and where everything needs to go, how much build it needs, and where he always has in the back of his head where we need to get next. And he's thinking 18 steps ahead of how to get
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these characters have such distinct voices too, and I love
Mhm.
that. That's
Yeah.
that's easy to achieve, especially in your first book, right? So
Yeah, voice is one of those things, don't you agree, Philip, that are like it's hard to teach.
Yeah. Can you teach
yeah,
voice or do you?
Can you?
there are certain techniques you can teach. Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
But
but
I
it's
remember some of the things you were doing when you were writing for the MFA and I would read and it's like I could play that. Like
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think part of the theater background is like, and you talk about as cheating, it's just like if I had to play that moment, I'd have a hard time because of this.
Yeah.
It's all a lens of performance. I couldn't
Mm.
get to this high point. We
Mhm.
need this before I could get there.
You
Or this
can't.
moment I could play, no problem.
Yeah, she's not standing by that table because of you have her over here, or like all of the blocking, all of the like just the continuity and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that like I know there are certain scenes that will come to our minds when I say this that like there's always we know a scene has reached what it can be when mom feels like all right the flow of that on the page is real
Ah,
good and dad feels like oh I can play that and I feel like oh I can shoot that and like that's
Mhm.
the perfect
Yeah, then
moment
we're
of
done.
Yeah,
Then we
then
ah,
we're
feel like we're
done.
done.
yeah.
then we're ready. And then the editors get a hold of it and say,
You're
"No,
not done.
This is horrible.
think again."
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful and I think unique combination of talents that you brought to this project. And it shows, it really shows in the vivid characters, in the quirkiness of it all. I just love it. And you mentioned one of the things you mentioned, I think it was Jacob who mentioned how you, Amy, were very careful in your research. You wanted to honor the different cultures that you were representing in here. Whose idea was it, or was it just did it grow organically to make this such a diverse cast of characters? Not only diverse in terms of where everybody's from, obviously it's cosmic horror. There's a whole like global element to this thing. We're dealing with some vast stuff here, but there's a real diverse cast of characters and a lot of hybrid characters, a lot of hybridity in here. Was that deliberate? Were you going for a certain theme with that, or did you just find yourselves falling in that direction? How did that happen? If you don't mind discussing that.
I think you were on a our live stream on Friday night when I mentioned that I had been researching my great uncle's school in the Third
Yes.
Reich, and
Yeah.
how I was coming off of 10 years of Nazi research and was just had a very bleak view of humanity, and
Yeah.
wanted just to have fun. But coming off of
Just to
all of
clarify that
that,
your relative was actually a hero in that context. I mean,
sorry,
Thank
no,
you,
he
Philip.
was
Yeah.
not. But a lot of people, don't
Well, when you
have
started, you
relatives who are
truly didn't have
heroes,
that.
in that
Yeah.
story, and that's okay. It's not you, but hope not. But where I landed with all of that time and all of those nightmares and was just it's just hilarious to me that racial purity
hmm.
is even
Even a topic.
is even an idea that
It's
holds
pretty
water.
stupid. It's just
Yeah.
Yes.
stupid. Yeah.
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 So I just wanted to run with all of these like these are people I know. These are people who have these mixed backgrounds who are just I just wanted to be pushing all of that information about just like there's nobody who has pure racial heritage. That
No,
I don't
it
know. I
doesn't
think
exist.
actually, I think Conan O'Brien does. He did like, find your roots and he found out he was 100% Irish.
Yeah.
It's rare.
He's the only
It's,
one I've seen.
it's
Yes, but the
rare.
only reason that can happen is inbreeding. So
Oh, no.
Don't.
But even the Irish are actually much more diverse than
Much
people.
more
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
If you go all the
I'm
way
just-
back to the Celts and I mean, yeah,
Oh, the
absolutely.
Celts, there were people there before the Celts. There were the Vikings invaded.
Yeah.
There's all
Yeah.
kinds of, Viking Norse blood there. There's just
Mhm.
it's a lot more than people realize. Yeah.
So I think when we were talking about what kind of book we wanted, and we wanted we didn't want an alien contact story from the point of view of white people in America again, although we are white people in America, and a lot of the book is in America because that's what we know. It would be weird if it wasn't, but but we wanted other cultures' viewpoints on what was happening
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
an alien contact, and we wanted the globe to be sort of like, to have this idea that this is one place and we are one
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And that's a cool idea to me because, like racial purity in countries and everything, it's
Mhm.
just like hilarious, like
Yeah.
you're kidding, right? I mean, we're like from an alien point of view, it's just like you're from Earth
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
it.
And maybe culturally they would perceive it a different way
Yeah.
due to cultural folkloric heritage or whatever, but still, for me, loving the genre, I think it was when we decided very early on when we were like a big piece of butcher paper on the table,
Yeah.
deciding what it was. It's like if it's going to be a global apocalypse, we want it to be a global apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I love lately Lovecraft is absolutely known as he should be for some of his shortcomings, misogyny and racism. And I love what Matt Ruff is doing, or Caitlin Kiernan, or Poppy Z. Bright, or Victor LaValle.
Yeah.
Trying to reclaim some of these things. So we wanted to do maybe some female character could have true leadership and lead the way here. Maybe
Mhm.
we could have a broader picture. And the other thing that I always loved about it is I always remember that dinner we had with David Hayne
David Haynes. Yeah.
when you brought this up with him, who was one of your mentors, one of your teachers.
Hmm. He writes Southern fiction from the Black American point of view,
Okay.
and he was my thesis advisor.
He was your thesis.
But he lives in Dallas, and dear man, very much love him, love his work. Was an excellent advisor for me. He told me, like, when I wanted to write about race and I was feeling uneasy about it,
Yeah.
when I was wanted to write a short story about race, and he said, I think you should. And I think not only that, I think every American should.
I think it's important.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to take a swing at it.
Yeah.
I think it's important when you miss, because you can't get it perfect, to learn from it and try again and try again and try again, because it's probably one of the most important topics that me, as Southerners can tackle, and how much it informs our culture. So I felt like early on I got permission to fail, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get it right. You're not gonna be perfect, but try and try again. So this was just me just going like, here we go. Let's swing for the fences,
Yeah. It's a wonderful aspect of writing that when we create characters, we're creating people who are different from ourselves, and we try to inhabit those mindsets, those worldviews. And it is an amazing act of empathy in a sense, isn't it?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that's a requirement for a writer is to have at least some amount of empathy in order to imagine what would it be like to see the world from this kind of person's perspective.
Yeah.
It's an act of the imagination, and it's a necessary part of writing, unless you're going to write every single character exactly like yourself, which in my case would be extremely boring. So
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
And I
I
think the
think
beautiful thing is hopefully that carries over to readers
Yeah.
that
Yes.
can have some of that experience. Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
the
as
most
exciting as Tweet is, I mean,
And it
it's very
is.
exciting.
And it is.
It is.
Look at you.
Look, I mean, I know that jacket has patches on the elbows. I know it does.
actually, this one doesn't, but
Oh, no.
sorry. Yeah.
Sean.
Denied.
Yeah.
I know that one of the most exciting moments for us that you kind of touched on, Dad, was when we were first starting to like roll out big pieces of butcher paper on the dining table and think about, okay, well, how does cosmic horror work in different cultures? Because you read a Lovecraft story and the scope of it is just so limited, because of the man that he was. And we got to, well, if there was a sleeping alien at the bottom of the ocean, turns out Islam would be just fine. And we were like, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that became like, oh, that's the most interesting thing about this book so far. Let's run with that.
I was lucky to have a friend from who spent his childhood in Iran and moved here after the revolution. His parents
Hmm.
were a part of on the wrong side of that, and came to Texas. And I've been privileged to know him for a number of years. And he I consulted with him about what Islam would do, and he would just send me articles and articles and
Wow.
tell me what that they would be fine with it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why it's backed up in the
They could
Quran. They this
incorporate
and
it
this,
because of
and
these reasons.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, and then so
Wow.
now we're starting to get into in book two, and Jacob did this research, and I'm real proud of him about what the Hindu population would do, what
Uh-huh.
Jewish population would do, how they're going to react to. I mean, like to me, it's just like, and I think Buddhists would kind of be okay with it too. They're like,
I can
okay,
see. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, there
Mostly.
it is.
But interesting. I've loved Lovecraft all my life. It's one of my just fave things, and I made sure Jacob read it too, and he got a real affinity for it. But
Right.
the way that those stories work is it's always like a very controlled set of eyes. It's one family on a farm. It's one very small seaside town. It's one professor at Miskatonic that reads the wrong paper that gets to see a bit of what's behind the curtain. But it's like, what if we blow that up? What if something happens to where everybody gets to see behind the curtain? What does that do to the form? And that was another fun part for me
Yeah.
just from having looked at this for so long.
That is so cool. Wow. I think it works pretty well, from what I've seen. But I think we've talked enough about the non-spoiler stuff at this point.
Okay.
Do any of you want to add anything to what we've said already? I think
I'm good.
okay, yeah. So this will be a warning to anyone who has not yet read Discovery. What are you doing? Why haven't you read this yet? Hurry up, go get it. It's brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Man, that is amazing. That's stupid crazy to hear
Yeah.
that.
I love this book, and I didn't know what to expect. I'm not a horror reader, as you might have heard, and my experience with cosmic horror is nil. So this is I think my first real exposure. I mean, I watched Twilight Zone back in,
Hmm.
the day and that kind of thing. Does that count? I guess it does. Right?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but this was magnificent. It's just a great, vivid story with so much life to it that I compared it to. I felt like I was watching a Quentin Tarantino film at times with the dialogue, and I don't know if that was a compliment to you guys or not, but I
Oh my
thought it.
gosh, yes.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was.
all
It
right,
was definitely,
Huge
yeah.
compliment. Yeah.
Huge, yeah.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
like John is and Jacob. I mean, they're very big fans of playwrights that have rapid fire dialogue. I mean, so am I.
Ah,
Like David Mamet and Martin McDonough.
yeah.
And so every
That,
time we were looking at any bit of dialogue, like Jacob would always ask, "Is it doing double duty?" It's like, if not,
yeah.
like leave it out or punch it up. So
Ah,
every bit of dialogue, if it wasn't coming from some kind of gut emotional reaction, was like it was going to have to work really hard to be included. And that thankfully is because these two were very insistent on you know on their adoration of really, really masterful playwrights and how they use that.
oh, it really shows. I mean, it's not just snappy and brilliant. It's quirky, and it does a lot of characterization as well. It does that work of characterization.
You
Beautiful.
point to me, but
Kid, I'm telling you, you're the
okay.
The
queen of
voice
voice.
is
Just
you.
accept it.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell her, son.
Yeah,
uh,
it's absolutely true. Although I do like hearing this because I feel like I'm still young, so it tells me I don't really know what kind of writer I am. So when you say like, yeah, Jacob likes to do this, I'm like, oh, I do like to do that. That's right. I'll remember that. I hadn't thought about that until now.
Uh, all right. Well, we got to get into spoilers. So
Okay.
okay,
for real this time, we're getting
for real,
spoilers.
leave.
I love these. Okay, here we go.
So we begin with Manny, who's just absolutely explodes off the page,
Yeah.
and this mystery that is just kind of thrown in our faces, and it also from the perspective of Nessa early on, who is this, working her way up clearly, and this media mogul, Howard Winfield. Winfield is the last name, right?
Winfield.
Yes.
Howard
Mhm.
Winfield's just massive, corporate structure. Um, this was a magnificent way to start this whole thing. First of all, it just absolutely draws your reader in immediately. Like, what the heck is all this chaos here? Who is this crazy guy? And look at how they're reacting to all this. And what is this deeper mystery of now? There's the journalist that Howard Winfield had, his friend, right, who had
Yes, as a Griff Tran. Mhm.
Griff Tran, exactly, who had also disappeared, and we get some correspondence from him, and it just deepens and deepens and deepens, and the whole time you're feeling this sense of dread increasing, 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 and was that your goal in the beginning? Was just to kind of scare the heebie-jeebies out of your reader with,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, yes and no, because we had like 8 different beginnings to the
Oh,
book
so
that
many different
all,
beginnings.
really,
yeah.
Yes.
okay.
One of them that like didn't work the most was from the point of view of a character that you don't even meet in this book.
Yeah.
You don't even, you kind of meet them in book 2, and they really have stuff to do way later. And we started book 1 with that, and my friend from Texas had happened to be visiting, and we were reading this beginning to check it for flow, and he got up and left. He was so bored. We're like,
Yeah,
that's
he
a bad
walked out of the
sign for
room. So we're
that.
I
like,
think he
this
announced
is
he was
wrong.
bored, right? He
Yeah,
announced he was
we
bored.
asked him, why did you leave? And he said, oh, it's just bored. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that we should maybe figure out a new
But
beginning.
that was when, and we actually thanked Tyler
Oh
because like
yeah.
we
Oh,
were
Yeah.
just like, well, that's good to
Tyler's our
know.
B team son.
And I said, well, what do you want to know? He said, I want to be in the newsroom where they figure it out. I was like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
So then we did the
That was very
newsroom.
helpful then.
That
It
was
Oh my
very
gosh,
helpful.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then we did the newsroom, and then after that we got pointers from Janny. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you need to understand that the beginning of this has to work like a thriller. You need stimulus, emotional response, physical response, repeat, and you have to build. I want this package that they receive to be scary. What does it smell like? And she was really pushing us to
The whole beginning works because
Feel
of
it to the sense.
she.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Someone
she-
of that caliber at that level of her game took the grace and time.
Yeah.
I mean, just over and over again to work.
Mm.
Yeah.
I to this moment, I'm floored with what
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
she
It's
spent.
about like an hour and a half phone call
Yeah.
where she went over what we had in the beginning. And she asked us right away, like, how hard do you want to work?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure you've met writers, and at one point you might have been, someday you are that writer that just says, I don't know, I think I'm
I
done.
feel like I'm done with it. Yeah.
And she's like, you can release this now. You're like, you can, or you can take it to the next level. And we're like, I think we want to take it to the next level. I really do.
Oh.
I think we want to work hard. And she's like, all right, then. And she let us have it for about an hour and a half. And
And then she got
so-
she got Don involved.
then she got her husband, Don, involved. Don Maintz, a brilliant illustrator, to give us ideas about how the deep sea dive would work. Because he was a deep sea diver, treasure hunter. And
Yep.
those guys are crazy.
I know. They've done everything. Between the two of them, they've done everything.
Yeah.
They've done everything. And
So he
Janny,
spent an hour on the phone with us too.
he spent an hour
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
phone with us after that, and then gave us references, gave us book titles, gave us, and then she's like, and then meet me back here in 6 weeks, and I was just like, whoa! I felt like I was doing a graduate program in 6 weeks. It
Yeah.
was
Mm.
it was daily. It was rough. It was, and I loved it. I loved working that hard.
That attitude of yours is why this book is so good. Because I have a lot of times when people say to you, will you read my book and tell me what you think? They don't want to hear what you really think. They want to be validated. And
Yes,
I've
yes.
lost
Yeah.
friendships over this sort of thing,
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to be critical because I think I can be helpful here. Are you okay with that? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. And then of course you do the compliment sandwich thing and
Yeah.
a nice
Yeah.
thing and you say a critical thing and then they don't respond to you and never hear from them again. Because your compliment sandwich was skimpy on the bread, I guess.
Yeah.
But that and
And I'm learning that too. I
yeah,
mean, like I've suddenly become a person where people are interested in what,
in your opinion.
in my opinion. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes my opinion is pretty I would say, you know what? It's not as harsh as Janny's. And I say that Janny is harsh,
Oh,
but it's like Janny's just loud and
No,
Oh,
she's forceful. She's
yeah, that's
she's a
it.
force
That's
of
it.
nature. If
That's
she's
it.
going to spend time with you, she's going to spend time with you.
She's going
oh
to
yeah.
spend time with you. And
Yeah.
if Howard's going to put something on the table, he's not going to lay it on the table. He's going to throw it. And like,
Yeah.
she's like, so
Where's your
everything,
verbs?
you
Where's
know,
yeah.
verbs,
Yeah.
where are you? And what I loved about that was that like I have to match her passion.
Yeah.
Like I'm the storyteller. I
Yeah.
have to get this person's attention.
Yeah.
This person who already has this, who already knows what, like the verbs, what they need to do. And what I was like, I've got to make Janny like this.
Yeah. And if you've ever read Janny, you know she's got a box of all the words and she
Yeah,
pulls
yeah.
each one
Very careful.
at
Many
exactly
of
the
them-
right moment.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
So-
got that wisdom and experience, and
Oh,
Right, right,
it's
right.
just
You
she's
listen.
just special.
Yeah. So I love this opening, and I thought you made the right choice in Nessa for the POV character. And I
That
want
was
to hear
Janny.
though why did you make that choice? Why was Nessa the POV character?
She wasn't originally.
She
It was
wasn't.
Howard.
It was
It was
And-
Howard.
And that was a bad call because
Ah,
Howard, you needed to back off that character 1 degree.
Yeah.
And it was Janny who started, it wasn't quite her idea to do Nessa, but it was her looking at the newsroom and what all was going on and noticing there were little feminist aspects. I mean, this is 1992, where
Mhm.
women are in the workforce. They're maybe taking off the shoulder pads from the 80s. Maybe they think they've achieved equality, but haven't really. And she started noticing all of these little things in Liv Ross, who was the VP, who was and when Nessa wasn't in there, she started talking about like, where is the feminist aspect of this?
mm.
And, looking pointedly at me. And I was like, well, maybe it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Howard
Backed
Winfield
off,
is
yeah.
Howard Winfield is not a feminist.
No.
No, but like he's not quite the guy who's going to sleep with all of his, like he's not like
No.
the
He's a
booty
gentleman.
smacking kind of guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not the booty smacking guy, but he isn't,
But he takes nobody's sensibilities into account.
nobody's.
No.
Yeah.
It's all about the job.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do think that when we started to look at what really needed to happen from, with the Janny formula, we discovered that being too close to Howard meant that we were showing our hands on too many things and we couldn't build
Absolutely.
any mystery.
Yeah.
We could, like, who is this man? Like, not only like what's going on out here, but who is Howard? Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Why are all these things happening? What's his real relationship with Griff? What's his,
Mm.
what's his motivation for doing all this?
And we would
then
know all that already if
you
he
would-
did
it was
that.
it wasn't any fun.
Exactly.
And it
Yeah.
was so when we backed off 1 degree and we did an observation character. It's just, she's a milk toast girl that gets pulled up from the news, the bottom floor to come to the top one day.
So you didn't know that she was going to be Oliver Doss's daughter at that point.
That was one
Oh.
morning she came up because we
It's like, guess what? Guess who Nessa is?
we've tried to chart it like it have a somewhat of an epic fantasy structure of multi POV around different lands that kind of tie together. And then when we came upon this for the beginning, we're like, okay, we need that person called up to the king's throne room
Yeah.
that gets all this laid on him at the beginning.
Right. Because when we rewrote the scene, remember,
Mhm.
like I was like, hey, I think Janny's book, Janny's direction is really working because look what this looks like.
Yeah.
Don's like, oh my gosh, you've got the fool in the next cubicle over going, like you're getting called up. You're going to the show and you get Nessa and you get all of this going on and you get the political circumstance. It's like, oh my gosh, you've got Hamlet.
Yeah.
Like what
Huh.
is happening?
Yeah.
Like, I think Janny knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And
Maybe.
then there was one morning you said, I think Nessa is Doss's daughter.
So that
And
was
that
you,
was-
Amy? That was your idea?
It was.
Yeah.
It
And
was.
that was
it
an
was.
idea where me and Dad went,
it went,
no.
No.
I'm not
Really?
sure about that.
It's
Yeah.
too
But it was so
convenient.
far down
and I
the
said,
road.
no, no,
we
no,
were-
no,
yeah.
no, it is. It's right. Because that's how Howard connects to Oliver Doss
Yeah.
is through Nessa.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
the whole reason that there's now like the whole Gossamer thread thing in the
Yeah.
background of that chapter now is to like, oh, well, what if it wasn't too convenient that Nessa is Doss's daughter? What if there was something a little metaphysical happening here that
Pulling it all
led
together.
them?
She's a gift from Tran. And why is she a gift from Tran? Is she really a gift? Is it going to turn the other way? Like, but then we started really spinning our wheels about down the road and what
Yeah,
this
how
all
much
could
fun that
be.
would be to explore. And when you have a moment like that, to say like, is creating or making Nessa Oliver Doss's daughter just a convenient soap opera plot twist, or does it crack open some things
Yeah.
that we can do later on? Does it contribute to theme? Does it help us, not in a, oh, I've written myself into a corner kind of way, but is this going to expand the world or contract it?
Yeah.
So when we all went through it and got over our knee-jerk reaction, and we said, nope, it's going to expand.
Expand it.
So we just ran with it.
Yeah. But that was at the 0 hour. This is towards the
That
very
is
end.
very, very end. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool to hear. I love that. And it worked
Yeah.
beautifully, I think. And we mentioned Oliver
Right.
Doss and his pupil, I guess, although the pupil pretty quickly outruns the mentor
Mhm.
here
Mhm.
in a big way
Mhm.
in Lucia.
Mhm.
So this was a great dynamic between the two. And I'm a professor, and I have students, and I obviously love it when my students thrive and do well. And I feel like some of them could even be. I've had a few who go into academia over the years, and I think to myself, wow, they're going to be great professors, someday. But this is a little different. This is a different order of magnitude, really, with Lucia, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
she's obviously at first I saw her and I thought, okay, clearly this is a neurodivergent character here, no doubt about it. But there's even more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
you
It
find
takes
out
that
further.
hybridism to the next level. Yeah.
Right.
You really did. You really did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to talk about Mary, obviously,
Sure. Yeah.
and Sorrow,
Mhm.
because they're the they really take this hybridity, as you said, to the next level.
Mhm.
But yeah, that dynamic between the two of them, where did that come from? Because I thought that was really well done.
That was 0 hour.
Also,
too.
That
like,
was also 0 hour.
and also as a result, like that was a developmental editor call.
Yeah.
Because Oliver Doss's stuff that's in between the acts, she basically held an axe over that and said, "Give me a reason this needs to be here, or it all goes."
Yeah.
And we're
Because
like,
at the time, DOS was
"What?"
really only explanation of the development of the Arlifs. There was no.
Wait, you're telling me that Lucia was added later?
No,
No, no,
Lucia
no,
was
no.
in there, but
Lucia
their
was
whole
there.
But their
relationship was
relationship
very not working correctly.
Yeah.
It wasn't
very
quite there,
vague.
and there was
And
no double
we
duty in
had
those
several
chapters.
evenings at our favorite little watering hole, and there were tears that we just couldn't make it work. And then this was you cracked it too.
We said, I woke up one morning, just like I said, I woke up and said Nessa is Doss's daughter, and I said Oliver Doss and Lucia Santa Maria is a love story, and these two went.
It's a father-daughter.
I was saying it's a
Yeah.
platonic love story, and it's an element in the book that we don't have yet. We really don't have a love story.
We don't have a heart.
So,
But we do have many
yeah.
themes of parental figures in that type of relationship, so it fit wonderfully. That was
fit
one where
really
all
good,
three
yeah.
of us heard the idea. It was like, oh, that's it.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Done.
That's
it.
it.
That's it. Because the failings of a parent or the striving to do better, that's in there over and over again. And if we had that, especially, and we even Doss is failing on his own, and he gets a second chance with
Oh, this is
with
clearly a
student.
second chance for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all that came at the
then,
0 hour.
So then we had that, like the idea that Nessa is Doss's daughter, and I was like, oh, if this is a love story, a platonic love story between these two, and then you've got Nessa coming back into the picture as the daughter who's given up on her father. Was like, oh, that's fun. So and again, once that decision was made and it started expanding the world instead of contracting it, we knew it was the right call.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was,
But just like
really
you say
fun.
with AP, that was our editor that
That
Uh-huh.
was, that was the
Yeah.
developmental editor
So
saying you need
have
to have a reason
branches
for
here,
this.
but
Yeah.
you don't have a trunk to hang them on. You got
Yeah.
to figure this out.
Yeah.
And
In
that was the
addition
0 hour
to
thing.
Yeah.
in addition to all the things with Perpasky and the developments in the world government, none of that was there before the developmental editor. Like what was happening in the world
Like
had nothing to do.
we knew all of that was going on, but
Yeah.
there weren't, like, it was our developmental editor, Erin Stallcup. It was her idea to do the found documents where Doss's uh, writings would include these articles, these news articles, or these letters, or these, just to start collecting this documentary evidence like a scientist would about how this world is working. And
And
that
the
was her.
changes
Yeah.
in how the world is developing are changing their perspective on their own little science experiment that they're doing. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
it had to go both ways, and that
Yeah.
was non-existent before.
This was all Aaron.
This was all
Yeah.
Erin. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, developmental editors are
Ooh, worth their money.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. But that's, also you're describing the creative process where you're given a problem and you realize you're stuck somewhere, but there's this, it could be while you were sleeping, this idea
Yeah.
came in your head, because you're rolling it over in your mind all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a fun thing, actually.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
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 That's what
I
when you
mentioned-
went before you went to bed that night, I think you had said, I'm giving this one to the universe.
Yeah. I would just say to the universe, I was like, okay, I'm going to let it go now, and you take over. And usually the next morning, or maybe the morning after, it'll just give the little gift and
The
say,
universe
this is what you need to
answers.
do.
Yeah.
When you
It's
listen,
really
the
cool.
universe answers. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, I did mention Mary and Sorrow, but I want to talk about them last because they're really the connectors. They're what
Yeah.
connects everybody, I think, in all of this, and especially Mary, but Sorrow too, really. So we'll save them for last. How about Tony? And one of the standout characters, your relative, Valdemar. I'm not your relative, but based in part, I guess, in some ways, on your
Not based on my
research.
relative, but yeah, based on people he knew. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So Valdemar is obviously a piece of work, and he's not the most easy person to get along with, I'm sure, for poor Tony, who also I'm guessing is somewhere on the spectrum. Tony is, and Valdemar though is just well, I guess there aren't too many former Nazis that are going to be just peaches and cream to be with, but I can't help but like the guy too.
That's the magic, right?
Isn't it?
That's the magic.
How do you write a despicable character that I want to see on the page and I love seeing there and
It's
I actually kind of like, and by the end of it, when he passes away, I'm kind of sad to see him go.
That I feel like I'm monopolizing, but I'm so excited to talk to you. That
I could say real quick how you did it,
okay, go ahead.
because it's exactly what I
I'll tell
said
you
before.
why I did it. Yeah.
It's how you did it is it ties into the deep cultural backgrounds of where he's been in his journey of what he's been through. So when he starts to see this whole the civilization starting to fall, he's been through it.
Mhm.
He's been through it before. He's seen it before. And
Uh-huh.
you add a stripe of a reverence to that.
Yeah.
He's in the pool with the flamingo floaty.
That's one of my
He's
favorite
singing
scenes,
show
I swear.
tunes. It's
Look at Jacob. Like, I put him in a flamingo floaty, and I sent it to Jacob, and I was like, you're gonna hate it.
this.
And then at that point,
See, that was I had like the same experience that all the readers had with Voldemort, because Voldemort was one of the ideas that I was like, no, and you
Yeah,
had to fight hard
absolutely
for
not.
it, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe there's something here, but it's exactly what Dad's talking about. It's the irreverence that makes Voldemort a human, somebody that is deeply, deeply, deeply flawed, but also has seen the world in its many forms and is understanding of what this chapter of the world looks like, and is just going to sit back and enjoy his pool floaties and not apologize because he's kind of sick of it,
As abusive as he is toward Tony, he does teach him some things.
Yes.
Yeah.
He teaches him to
to stand up for himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he teaches him with the kind of old German corporal punishment.
Which you have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to say about like why why I wanted this character in there, and why and it was a story that I read from in my great uncle's memoirs, or like his diaries, about how during
Yeah.
the night of the Long Knives, which was in
Yeah.
like after Hitler came to power, he did a purge, as all dictators do. Like, everybody who helped me here, thank you very much, but you're fired. And
Mm.
yeah, it was about a year later, it was 1934, and my great, his name is Gregor. He he was also he worked for the news. He worked for the International Chicago Tribune,
Wow.
and he used it as a way, because he was incredibly nosy, to get places. Like, he would, so he would be doing. He was running the school by day, and he was a newspaperman by night. And he was running around and during the night of the Long Knives, and listening to all the gunfire and the people getting assassinated. And he would be like, like crawling up to this, like the barracks, and listening to the executions. And he was at a house somewhere in Berlin, and a lot of his friends and some of the parents from the school were all in the parlor, just going like, "What is going on? Can you believe this?" And one of their friends, a German friend who was a Nazi, like full uniform and everything, came in and just sat down and just collapsed and cried.
Mhm.
But he
Mm.
was doing the executing, and he was so upset about what was going on. Um, and they were shocked that they didn't know what to do about it. Yeah, but like,
Mm.
how do you comfort this person?
Yeah.
But everything about that moment, about that dichotomy of somebody who could do such great evil and feel something for it,
But still be a
I
human.
just come back to that a moment over and over. And like a lot of what Voldemort is me trying to wrestle with that
Mm.
scene that Gregor dealt with.
Wow.
And like, like, how do I know this person outside the situation, and this is what's going on, and he's having this reaction. It was just so layered. And I was like, I love that. I love that life can deliver. I mean, obviously it was, pure evil, but what a moment, right?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And Valdemar is so perceptive,
Yeah.
even as he's a twisted, harsh,
Yeah. Yeah.
old, old crotchety dude, he's also perceptive, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
he's actually right a lot of the time when he's being a jerk.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Plus, he knows a lot more about really what's going on, with the presence in the ocean and everything else. He knows a lot more than we realize at first. He turns out to be part of this whole network of people in the know, as it were, or
Yeah.
people who have been investigating this for a long time, and plays a pivotal role in all of that. So, yeah, cool character. You guys pulled that one off really well.
Thank
And
you.
Oh, thank you. I part of me feels like anytime someone says, "Yeah, I really liked Voldemort," I was like, but half of me goes, "Really?" And half of me goes, "Of course."
there's a dynamic between him and Tony too. I feel like Tony is a stand-in. Obviously, this is in the '90s, but he's playing video games, right?
Mhm.
And there's a generational thing going on here, clearly, right?
Mhm.
That's part of the dynamic, which is honestly what kind of made it fun for me too.
Yeah.
Was the generational clash
Yeah.
going on here, right? And
Yeah.
the perception on the part of the older generation that, oh, what a bunch of wimps, what a bunch
Yeah.
of crybabies. And he has some pretty unflattering nicknames that he keeps inflicting on this poor kid. And but Tony does learn and he grows. And by the time Tony's, at the end of this, he feels like he's going to be a key player in all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ye-
Tony's a
Yeah.
really exciting one because we originally wrote book three first by accident, and
Oops.
oops, as you do. And
Like you do.
the problem that we had with writing what we didn't know was book three at first was like, okay, half of this book is backstory, and we love so much the person that Tony grows into that now we're writing his backstory, and just knowing the person that Tony becomes is like I'm so excited to get to that journey.
Yeah.
Are
That
you
Hmm.
saying you're basically like Valdemar looking at Tony at this point?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Like you're looking at young Tony, and a lot of Baltimore is just like, you got to toughen up. You got a lot ahead of you.
No, there's something
Uh,
coming. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be bad. And there's uh, Voldemort and Tony, and where Tony goes, and that was that I love that part. I mean,
Yeah, me
some
too.
people are conflicted about how they should feel about a Nazi, but it's like I
Yeah.
think you should feel that they're humans, and I think you should feel that they are that like you have that possibility in you to be that way because you're human too,
Hmm.
but you also have possibility for redemption. You're you have a possibility for, like Voldemort says, like this is my hell. This
Mm.
is where I've his some kind of self-reflection involved in, like that's uh I deserve this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a big theme of the book too is connections. And it's like you can't pick your family all the time,
Nope.
but
No.
I
they
don't think you can any really.
they
I'm up
may have
there's
something
found
to
family, I
teach
guess.
you or
Yeah.
share,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Ashanti because here's an example of a character where I felt like you established, I feel like, oh, that seems like a really nice family. They seem like a really
oh gosh.
great group at first, and then you realize there's this whole cult thing going on.
Mhm.
And then when you see what's happening with her older sister and how cruel they are to her because she's not going along with the cult, right? The way she's supposed to. And she's seen stuff that has changed her. And they're not happy with what the message she's come back with, right? So
Mhm.
I felt terrible for the older sister, of course, and poor Ashanti is the witness to all of this, and
Mhm.
that's so much all what happens to her sister becomes part of her and who she becomes. Her journey is in a big way about what she witnessed as a kid, and wanting to solve that, what happened to her sister, get to the bottom
Yeah.
of that. So that's just a really interesting. And you do a lot with cult-like mentality here in the story, don't you? You have it's a real, because you're dealing with this worldwide phenomenon here, this invasion or whatever we're going to call it. I mean, it's been down there for a long time, I guess. So I'm not even sure. I mean, there's still a lot of mystery to this, even at the end of this book, really.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, that's deliberate on your part, but yeah, I thought you had some great insights there into what happens to people when they limit their perception by sticking so rigidly to a playbook, even when there's evidence to the contrary in front of their faces.
Hmm.
But they're part of the cult and they can't see anything different to the point where they even turn on their loved ones.
Hmm.
That's tragic. It was a very
Yeah.
tragic aspect of this. But
And
Ashanti,
it,
I gotta admire her. She's tough and
oh yeah, she's tough. And
Yeah.
I think when we were early on, when we had that big piece of paper out and we were looking at the way cosmic horror works is you start to take away where anyone could draw comfort from because
Mm,
the mystery of the cosmos is so vast that the things that we've created here, be they infrastructure, government, religion, philosophy,
Science.
science, any of these things could be torn to shred under the vastness of this true mystery, right? And
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of the way it works. So we wanted to look at science, religion, politics, and we thought, what if what if there's a some type of truly fringe religion that all of a sudden would be ascendant because of this? And
Uh-huh.
what would that new breath of power mean to these? What would they do to hold on to that power? How addictive would that be after struggling in obscurity for so long? Like what would that look like juxtaposed to what we've thought about as faith-based structures that are very the permanence is you can't even question, because they've been around for so long. So it's like I think that was part of what
Yeah.
we're thinking and
Yeah.
messing with and playing with there.
I think my favorite thing about Ashanti and the situation that she's in is just there's so when you create this fringe religion that is suddenly on a stage in front of the world just because of this discovery that's been made, and it's like, oh, how are they going to seize this opportunity? You really create an open position of power that's just ripe for somebody to come up and take. And I love moving from Tony into Ashanti. That Ashanti has just kind of always had the lesson that Tony has yet to learn of
Mm,
being able to stand up for yourself and point out when things are not working correctly and try to do your best to fix it.
mm.
Yeah.
And Ashanti, with her zesty personality, shall we say, is ready to point out all of her family's flaws, even though they may not be able to hear it. And much like Tony, I'm so excited to see
Oh
or
man.
move forward with, you know,
Ashanti, yeah.
Yeah.
being in a position where power is ripe for the taking and having a character like Ashanti where sometimes wisdom is not in direct relationship to age of what that character can be capable of.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, it is time to move on to what I consider to be one of the most mysterious elements of the story, and that is Mary and Sorrow and Mary's whole parentage and everything else there in Ireland. And this is just another great, place you bring us in this story. Not that it was an entirely enchanting childhood that she had, but
Yeah.
but
Because
but
guess who shows up?
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me, where did the ideas for this come from? For Sorrow and what he is and his role in basically he's playing the long game here, obviously, and you want to be sympathetic toward him, and yet you see how he's the puppet master. He's using these other characters, and sometimes in a way that's kind of brutal, and he knows. But it's one of those, I'm going to have to sacrifice this pawn in order to win the game here. And he does it, and of course, Mary, I feel like she's much more sympathetic toward the pawns that she is essentially mentoring and preparing for their roles in all of this. So where did you get the ideas for this, though? I mean, because this is really something that I loved, and it just caught me by surprise, I have to say. So where did Sorrow come from and Mary?
Sorrow was I wrote Sorrow first as a housekeeper caretaker for Voldemort.
Yes.
And I had no idea who he was. He showed up and he was a bizarre looking man. And Jacob and John were like, "Who's this guy?" And I was like, "I don't know." He showed up and he wants to play. And then we started to realize,
And at the same time, we did have another character that functions as what Sorrow now is, this godlike player that
yeah,
They just weren't the
some
same
other
character.
name entirely. It was
So
some
you
other
merged
character.
the two.
Yeah.
yeah. And then as we went along, I was like, I think Sorrow
I think
is
this is Sorrow.
character.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like Sorrow's in this house. Sorrow is not only here, he's here and he's here. And so we started to really have fun with where else Sorrow could be
Mhm.
and what else he was doing. And that was really fun for us to look at that, not only that master servant relationship between Voldemort and Sorrow, about maybe Voldemort's in control, maybe he's not. And that's a fun kind of, Beckett kind of thing to do. Just to say like, "Oh, maybe this is not as it seems," and then to take that a step further and go, no, Sorrow is really a lot different. And so we started to expand and rewrite about where he's been. Yeah.
He's
So
obviously very
Go
alien.
ahead, Dr. Chase.
Yes.
He's
Always.
obviously very alien.
Yeah.
And
He is completely.
is he capable of empathy?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a
Maybe
good
you can't
question.
answer that. Maybe you can't answer that. I don't know.
What I will say is that
It is a
here's-
question that is
Go ahead,
posed to
son.
him by another character.
Yeah.
At the end
when
of the book,
he's-
it's like, have
yeah,
you gone native? Have you
you
gone
gone
native?
And that's a theme that John loves. He loves the going native theme of, an alien who's supposed to, or somebody who's supposed to be cold and detached. And
This
then
is the whole
they get
dialogue with what is it, Chaos?
chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah. Another cosmic being. And chaos is like, watch, I'm going to do this. And it's like, oh, you got mad. You're not supposed to get mad. You're supposed to be, this is who you are as a race. So now we're getting into this kind of like who you're supposed to be, and on a larger stage. And so we were just really fascinated, and John's always fascinated with like the you've gone native thing. So, Sorrow, uh, that's his whole struggle with the series. Am I,
Yeah.
am I this? Am I that? Have I become something new from my time here on
Yeah.
Earth?
Because it would be like the kid who tortures ants,
Yep.
one day it's figuring out, oh, actually they have feelings and
Yeah.
Yeah.
do feel for
Yeah.
you. Sorry, little ant,
Sorry,
Yeah.
little ants. But then you like stand up and you immediately step on them, like, whoopsie,
Whoops.
like you just can't
He can't
help but being who you are, being this clumsy oaf in the world, or if they're red ants, you don't have it. It's like, you're gonna hurt my kids. I'm gonna exterminate. No,
Yeah.
and not think twice about it. It's just a matter of perspective that, You go live in a while in an anthill, you might react a little differently, but
Yeah.
you still got to protect your kids. It's all just like it's like he's dealing with something kind of really complex that we can't wait to get to.
Yeah.
Or in Sarah's case, oh, these ants are quite interesting. Maybe I'll build a little ant empire. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
And some ants have to die for me to get there. That's okay. So Sorrow can't be wholly good to
Yeah, no.
have
Yeah.
this
But
secret plan that he's got in the back of his head.
I love the fact that this worked for you, Dr. Chase, and that you say, I haven't done cosmic horror before. Because if you were a big fan of cosmic horror, you would see where we got all this.
Yeah.
It's all laid out for us. And H.P. Lovecraft created these pantheons in these ways and said, hey, here's a sandbox. You can go back and read his letters to his peers and friends. Play in my sandbox. So everything, we can trace back everything to that, but we wanted it to be fun for someone that hadn't done it before.
Mhm.
And there's so many little, like, as far as people always tell you, you guys show don't tell, but there's always that found document and that tell part of a Lovecraft story that we tried to get in there.
Yeah.
And there's always that alternate history of what you thought you're resting on as far as the past is pretty shaky, and that's not really what you're resting on. And when you start to look at the past of Ashanti's family with Reverend Greaves, or the Edda Society with the work of Valdemar, and all these kind of things, you start to see it's like, oh, our past is not what our past is at all, the way I've thought. So all these kind of things that we're riffing off of and playing with, it's a lot of it's laid out there
Yeah.
for us to do. That's how the form kind of works.
And at Sorrow's core, it's really the main thing between Lovecraft's ideology and ours that we tried to implement here. You talk about it all the time, Dad. Lovecraft is very humanity is pointless, and we will never possibly have agency within the cosmic realm. How could we? We're nothing.
We're ants.
Um,
We
We
are
are the
ants.
we're
ants.
ants, yeah. And
There's
Sorrow exists to basically be like, well, what if we gave agency to the ants? What if they weren't completely useless? How would
Yeah.
that, what does
Or
that grant
that
me?
that theme that you say I love so much. It's like, what if this person had been around here amongst these amazingly flawed, dichotomous, beautiful, adaptive,
Destructive, territorial.
destructive
Yeah.
people? How would that change him? What would he become? Would he
Yeah.
be what he was when he first got here? Probably not, right? And where does that change come in? I love that. And I love,
Mm.
down the road, the Arlifts are going to be, or do we really not have agency if we were able to create a reality? Maybe we're on a different level of playing field than people thought we were. So we're trying to not take everything that was laid out by Lovecraft, but have some fun in some other areas.
Yeah. Well, and there's chaos, of course, we mentioned, and he seems to be or it or whatever. He seems in another league, really, even from Sorrow,
Yeah.
and to the point where it feels like a very potent symbol for life and the universe at large, and how we are so small and how it's all so unpredictable, and that it's scary, from our tiny little ant perspective, to think
Yeah.
of that not only is the universe potentially just indifferent to us, but maybe it's even hostile, or even wants to play around with us a little bit and oh, look at the silly little ant, let's flip it
Mhm.
on its,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Let's
what I
get out the
mean?
magnifying glass. Yeah. And and how chaos is present in so many other cultures, like with Loki and with it's just the trickster character, it's the Joker, it's the and what's fun to me about that character is how much it informs so many cultures,
Yeah.
and how it's just really a reflective aspect of how humans view their place in the universe. It's very whimsical and it's very out of control, but I mean, as humans, don't we love that character so much? Like I love Loki. I love the Joker. I love that aspect of play that's introduced. When you go with the trickster character.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. And then there's Mary, who is really half mortal, I guess, right? I mean, she
Yeah.
is half literally.
Mhm.
And she seems much more relatable, more human,
Yeah.
but she's obviously not just human. There's more to her. Always, not that I would look under a nun's dress, but
We'll have to take your word for that, won't we?
Yeah. That was,
But there seems something different under there than
Yeah, yeah.
what you might expect. No, Mary, and I was very sad that she was the piece that chaos decided to, you know, uh,
Yeah.
We
It,
were
it
too.
sounds
we were
it sounds
too.
good. It sounds bad, but I'm glad that, that was horrible for you. That makes me happy.
yeah, it was horrible. You should feel terrible about it.
I
I
remember the
don't.
day.
It
I
makes me
remember the
happy.
day that we realized that Mary's arc was up, and I said, guys, I think we have to kill Mary, and both of them went,
Yeah.
what? But we need her for, and then there was nothing, and I was like, uh-huh. And the universe, the book expands with her death rather than contracts. That's what, now somebody has to fill her shoes, and
Yeah.
now we have movement, and now we have, and so we knew right away it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, but we did want to make that a difficult
Yeah,
call
but it wasn't.
because I love Mary so
I
much.
love Mary so much. And she's so fun.
Yeah, she's very fun to write, and
Yeah,
she's
she
very
was a
fun.
lot of
Yeah,
fun. She was
yeah.
always fun on the page, but you
But I
went and
Yeah.
love
did
how,
the hard
yeah.
thing. You killed off a beloved character, and raised the stakes in the process, I would say.
And
So
Jacob is really
Mary,
great about that. Jacob is the one when I was, even when he was very young and I was in grad school, like I would print a story off back when you printed off your stuff.
Yeah.
And I would print off a story and he would walk up to my printer. He's like, "What do you got here, Mom?" And I think he was about like 5 or 6 years old. And I was like, ah. And he read my first page and I was like, this is an odd thing when your kid's reading your first page of your story. And he read it and he looked at me very seriously and said, "It's not bad, Mom, but there's no shark."
oh,
And and I thought, what a what an interesting thing to say, because like it was like I had no, and this is the same thing Janny said later. It's like, where's the antagonist?
Yeah.
And like when it's like when you're writing literary stuff, it's just like maybe your antagonist shows up and maybe it doesn't. But Jacob has always been the one to push me to kill the darlings.
Yeah.
And
He at that point he thought he had watched, we'd let him see some scenes of Jaws, and he thought Jaws was
the
and I'm not
epitome.
saying he's wrong, the epitome of storytelling.
Yeah.
So it's like, where's the shark? Nothing's driving this, nothing's pushing this. You
Yeah,
have no
like
shark.
No.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got to start a story right off the bat with somebody getting their legs bit off,
Yeah.
Ma. And I was
That's
like,
how it works.
okay.
well, you got something in the water here.
Yeah.
There's your shark, buddy.
There's something in the water.
Took me 20 years to answer it, but there's the
Yeah,
shark.
there you go.
We got it. After,
Have a
oh
shark.
boy, has it been 20 years?
It has.
Oh God. Now this sounds bad in this call, but I feel old hearing that.
Oh, please. You feel old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're the one saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But
Well, yes.
Mary was, we were talking about characters that, oh, Sorrow just appeared. Who is that? I mean, Mary was full on very early drafts of the story. My mom came in and was like, here's a draft of this chapter. And my dad and I were both like, who the hell is this nun? What are we going to do with this? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And a year later, it was like, oh, okay. This nun goes here. The,
Yeah. Yeah.
we just had to hang on to Sister Mary for a long, long time before we knew
Yeah.
what she did.
She rolls
Amy
up
is
in
very
her
much.
fancy cars and
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's, the characters will just come in and sit down and start dictating to her sometimes.
yeah.
And she'll bring in pages and it's like, okay, no one talked about, you know,
Yeah. Well, that's when
none.
you know. That's when you know you're either in the zone or you're just crazy.
Yeah.
Could be both.
Yeah.
Could be both.
It's a toss up. It's 50-50.
Sometimes scary as a writing partner working that way, because that kind of changes the way that you work, Mom, because you either I've heard you say this before, sometimes you hear the voice and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And there have been many times that it's like, all right, it's time to write this next chapter or this next part or move into this POV. And you've just sat on it for a week and a half. Like, I can't hear it. I don't know what to do. And one day something clicks and I'll come home from work or dad will come home and I'm like, all right, I wrote 40 pages today. What do you mean you wrote 40 pages? I don't know. This person was talking to me. Like, I guess I have 2 hours to catch up on what the book is about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where did you come up with all the funny names that Mary calls people?
Well, I was reading a book about by Jess Kidd, who was Irish, and she in the beginning of Things in Jars,
Mm.
a very Mary-like character used the affectionate term tulip for somebody who was dying.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's gonna uh, you're gonna regret that tulip, is what she said, and I absolutely loved how both affectionate and superior she was in that situation.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, that's a cool thing to do. So, I stole it.
Cool. I also love how Lucia imbibes a lot of that. And you have
Yeah.
early on, you have Miss Das wondering why does she sound weirdly Irish sometimes, right?
And Hispanic.
Yeah, isn't that fun though? Like when you think as an American, like perhaps like when you're speaking a foreign language, what an American accent sounds like in each of these languages. Like you can hear something with that bonjour, that's that's not French, but that's an American speaking French. But like you have to think about like how other cultures. I was like, what if somebody from Veracruz was learning to speak English from a Scots Irish nun?
Yeah.
Like what does that sound like? And how fun that is to play with,
Yeah.
and how much fun that would be like for an actor. Hollywood, give it a shot.
Yeah.
But that was like, that was for me. It was just like, how fun would that be to play, and how fun would that be linguistically to follow? That would be, yeah.
We tried not to lose that through the whole thing. Like
Yeah.
the scene at Sorrow and Chaos at the end, it's like, oh man, I would love to play that scene.
Oh my
We tried to have
Oh,
scenes that's like,
yeah.
I'd love to
Well,
play
you've
that.
got two shapeshifters.
Yeah.
You're
I
doing a
was gonna
wizard.
say
You
with
have two
chaos
shapeshifters
turning,
doing a wizard battle, and
Yeah.
Wizard
yeah,
duel.
that was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
you'd have to get somebody that can turn back into the driver and the fisherman in Ashanti's chapter, and just be
Yeah.
able to snap all the way through all of those.
Finding out how chaos was there all along.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then at the very end for the
Standing on his soapbox.
yeah.
This is weird. We're in spoilers. Do it.
I just it's not the curtain call, it's the
Encore.
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 Yeah.
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 Back at the very end for the encore
Yep. Yep.
Where he's Manny.
where he's man.
I'll say it.
It's been revealed. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
been revealed. Yeah.
it's in this book, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really cool. You guys really pulled it off here in Strange Eons, book one. How many books are there going to be?
5.
5 total. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And do we know when book 2 is going to be out yet, or that's still too early to say?
We need to we are doing our audiobook now through Podium Entertainment. So
Yes,
we've just started that
congratulations on
process.
that, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
It's
Thank you.
fantastic fun to cast this
Big
Yeah.
thank you to Brian Bell as well.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Big
Brian
thank
Bell.
you to Brian
Huge,
Bell
yeah.
for helping us along with that. So what we've got is an obligation to turn in book 2 to them by December of next year. So that is the latest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the latest. That and then a couple of months after, that's when we'll release.
Okay.
So
But it could be
Oh, so you
fast.
actually you have an assignment now. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and that fun. Like you
No
put
pressure.
a book out. Yeah, no, like we're
Yeah.
toiling in obscurity at first, and then like once it's out, they're just like, and now you have to put book 2 out. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not used to people like actually wanting to read. I mean, it's lovely, but I'm not used to
I
it.
mean, that's the thing too. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, sure. I mean, Podium wants book 2, but also it's like just having readers say, "Oh, I need book 2,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
is really weird. It's
Yeah,
really,
we
really
were-
different than
Well, you should have
know.
taken 20 years to write all the books.
There. See, you should have followed your
You
model.
totally did it
Yeah.
the right way, by the way. You
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
totally did it the right way.
Yeah.
No, not if you want to actually like make a living off of it.
I don't know if anybody can make a living, but
No.
but that's it. Yeah, that's been the weird aspect of that is that we were gonna do a novella next because we figured that we could get that out the fastest. And
Uh-huh.
we already had the idea of where we wanted to place it. And we were just going to do a little bit of world expansion, nothing heavy, but just a little bit of a side quest, if you will. A few of the side characters in this one, serving as the main characters, and just, explain the world a little bit more. But at that point, when we started working on that novella, some of the responses to the arcs had come in
Yeah.
from, very dear friends from like you and Brian Bell and Tudor Ramble. And the consensus was, where's book two? And we're like,
Uh-huh.
I guess we better work on book two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's that, and also that we were very like the feeling like, oh, okay, maybe we should work on book two made us all look at each other and go, well, that's really exciting. Like, I think we were
we were
maybe book
excited by
two
that.
is the more exciting thing for us to do next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being that we started at 3 and kept backing.
Yeah, because we know what's in book two. So that when we collectively say that, like, are you ready? We're gonna get to the it's big fun. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
So you said 5 books like that, so
Yeah.
it's going to be in all 5 books, basically. You
Yeah.
have the bones of it is
We
Yeah.
know pretty much everything in books 2 and 3. We know a good amount of book 4 and a good amount of book 5.
Mhm.
okay. And you know the ending, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We-
we could
we-
probably
yeah.
recite the ending to you right
I've
now.
acted out the
Mhm.
ending.
Oh, well. I guess we're not actually going
For
to
the-
do that.
For the right
No.
Patreon level, join this for us to recite the ending and
Yeah.
the Manny tapes.
We're
I-
working on
I-
this Patreon here.
Yeah.
Skip ahead 6 years of waiting, and you
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we do like we know yeah. I think the ending is really clear.
Yes, we
Yeah.
know that. There's no other ending.
No, we know exactly where it's going.
Wow. Okay.
We know, so when we say
Like
like
what
the
crazy
ending for book
character
two-
thing will pop in there between now and then. We have no clue.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think we can get book 2 done before that December deadline, but come Tuesday when we have another writers meeting and Mom comes up with a whole new character, maybe I'll regret saying that.
it takes me a while to get that.
You know
Yeah.
what? You need
Going.
chaos in order for
Yes.
creative process to do
You
what it
do.
does, right?
Yeah.
That element of chaos has to be in there. So.
Metaphorically and literally. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In your case, literally too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you guys so much. I've had a splendid time here. I hope you have as well.
Oh, this has been so special. We've looked
Really,
forward to
really
this.
special. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Well, and I know you're doing the rounds and everything too, so I do appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. But I am a huge fan of what you guys have accomplished here. I can't wait to see what you do next. Not that I'm rushing you, but you do have until December next year. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah.
We have- keep it going. Keep it going.
Keep it going. We should do a weekly call so you can remind us.
Move along. Move along. Yeah.
Well, we
But-
appreciate you. I
Yeah.
mean, giving us your time in all kinds of ways with having
Oh.
us on here and reading the book to begin with and
And
giving
being
us your
just a
sage
friend
advice.
on call that would
Yeah.
Right.
pull us out of the mud so many times. We don't know what we're doing, and you were always a friend there that would be
When
so gracious
When
and
I
so
would
helpful.
call you at work and crying is going like, that's Dr. Chase. What this page on Amazon KDP mean?
yeah. Oh, good
This
Lord.
is
You know you're desperate when you're asking me for help with KDP, but
Well, You said you knew. So he said he knew. What
well,
does that
I
mean?
wish you also much joy working together, producing the rest of these books. And the good news is you get to do it with some really lovely people. So that's a good
Not
thing.
only that, but a lovely community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that is the big lesson. That it's like it's not the three. It's the team is huge. It's unbelievable.
Let's
the
even that, and
yeah.
the booktube support and the
And
the
support, and it's
it's
I mean, that's
just
been
really amazing.
the biggest dream has been like we get to do all these international characters, and there's enough people that like book one that we can ask, like, so does anyone live in Veracruz? Can we ask you some questions?
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
and it's fun. It's just like there's somebody that we did know really well on Discord who's like, my friend's wife is in Veracruz. I was like, hello.
yeah.
And then shortly after, you spelled Lucia's name wrong, and then oh no, let's fix that before the book goes out. All right.
Ah, that's magnificent. Well, congratulations again. And
Thank you.
yep, I will have, of course, a link in the description to not just the channel Talking Story, which is the Mintons as we all think of it nowadays, but also to the book where people can purchase it. So you guys are going to tell me when we're off camera the best links to put in there.
Okay.
We can do it.
So there'll be links for people to go ahead and buy Discovery. It really is a fantastic story, everyone. I urge you to check it out. Just a delight. Even if you're not into cosmic horror, I had never read cosmic horror before, and it's going to be one of my favorites of the year. So go and check out Discovery. And but thank you so much for listening in here. If you made it to the end, and go check out the Mintons over at Talking Story. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Till next time, everybody.